And welcome to the Comics Touch. I'm Paul, your host. I'm here with Gemma, as always. How you doing, Gemma?
Hello, doing very well, thank you.
We've got an extra co-host today who may stick around for the whole show, but may not. It's Gemma's dog, Krang. I'm so happy that Krang has actually jumped up and
yeah, actually jumped up. I didn't coerce, didn't force no kissing. It's a PG show. There we go.
Oh, she's lovely.
Yeah, lovely. I might have to put her down though, because I feel the whole rig's going to come down here in a minute with my headphones. You go there, darling. So, yeah,
we're off to a good start.
Right, off to a good start. If anything, just come here for the Krang.
Yes. That's it. You can, of course, catch more of Krang on Gemma's Instagram and Twitter feeds, I'm sure. I've seen plenty of pictures of little Krang, and I'm always pleased when I do. She's a lovely dog.
Yeah, really lovely. Really lovely.
Yeah.
Very naughty, but that's all right.
Small dogs can get away with that, though. Do you notice?
Well, yeah. She's a bundle of joy. But yeah, she gets away with everything, Paul, let's be honest, everything. But it's, one of them. How could you, refuse that little face?
Indeed. I hope one day that's how the viewers will feel about me, Gemma.
Yeah, they will feel like that about you, Paul. Oh, brilliant.
It's great to see you again. Thanks so much for coming back. I actually haven't read much this week. I've been really bad. Just busy on the website, so I haven't had a chance to really kind of dig in and read as much as I would have liked. But I'm sure you've read a couple of bits, so I hope you're going to talk to us about those. So what's your first kind of pick for the week?
So my first pick for the week is Homesick Pilots. And I've got issues 1, 2, and 3 here because I reviewed 3 this morning.
Awesome.
It's fantastic. It really is just a brilliant comic. So I wanted to talk about that today a little bit. I've reviewed all 3 of them, and just brilliant. Every single issue is brilliant, and actually brings something different in each one. So that's really, really good as well. But basically, it's set in the early 90s, around 94, and it's about a group of teenage friends who are in a punk band called Homesick Pilots. And it's basically about them wanting to find an unusual venue for a gig because they've been to see their rival band, the Nuclear Bastards, and they played in an abandoned bowling alley, so they want to sort of rival them and have a better place to have a gig. So they decide to have a gig in a haunted house, as you do. So yeah, basically that's what they aim to do. They go and find the local haunted house and check it out, really, to see if it's any good for a gig. Of course, there is history with this house. A lot of people have died or gone missing, or lots of different things have happened around it. So there's a little thing about that at the start of the comic as well that's really, really interesting. But yeah, it's just, I mean, it makes me feel so nostalgic, Paul. I think I was a teenager, sort of around, I'd probably say a bit later in the 90s, a little bit later in the 90s. And it's kind of just like what we did, really. I was in a punk band and we used to look around haunted houses and run through graveyards for a laugh. And it just really invokes all of that. It makes me feel young again, which is good. And it reminds me of all the naughty things that I did, which I quite like. I quite like being reminded of that. So it's great. It's great for that. And it just, as well, it just looks incredible. Really, there's something really special about Caspar Wijngaard's art and colours. He's got his own particular style that you see throughout a lot of his work, and it's just comes out of the page. I don't know a better way to sort of describe it. And the one thing I would say about this comic as well is the use of the panels is just something else. I've not actually seen it before. There's something in the first issue, which I don't know what the technical term would be, but my term is doll's house. So I've called it the doll's house.
Yes.
Because it's like opening up. Never seen anything like it. I mean, absolutely brilliant the way you go through it. every medium is just used to the most of its potential in this comic. I mean, the colours, the artwork, obviously the story's fantastic. The letters, it's really different what happens with the letters in here. There's whole pages where it's totally blank and it's like a narrative, and the letters are the art within themselves. Really, really clever stuff. Really lovely done, and it is an art form in itself. So it's really, just absolutely brilliant. What I really love as well is there's lots of references to bands in there. So Fugazi gets a little mention. The Ramones get a mention, or Ramon, should I say, not necessarily favourably, but they get a mention. And also there's a bit about Bad Religion that's really great, which is it's a great little sort of synopsis of punk. And the attitude of a lot of people in punk bands, or not in punk bands, in the punk sort of era, where a lot of them don't actually like music. They're just sort of there, just say that there. I've met a lot of people like that over the years. So yeah, just all them great little references of things that you would really, have experienced back then, and the type of people you would experience back then, that they're in this comic. So it's just it's fantastic. It's really, really good, especially if you're a music lover as well, and if you do have an awareness of that period of time and the type of music in that period of time, it sort of clicks really, really well. So there's that side of it, which is the more realistic side, I suppose, and things that we can relate to in that sense. But there's a brilliant sort of supernatural element to it, and the thing I love the most is the emphasis on like items being haunted. I've got a thing about that. So like, there's a haunted doll, or there's a haunted fridge in issue 3. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's like, but I just love the idea of all these haunted items needing to get back to the house, and then using, well, I don't want to spoil it too much, but it's just brilliant. But just buy it. Just definitely buy it. It's it's just got lots and lots of different elements that I love, and it's a great creative team, really, really great creative team that have produced something that's, really special, even down to the small details. Like, it is a variant that I've got here, but the first issue is a band poster, stuff like that really, really sort of, grabs me. And it's just them little things. And I mean, at the back of, I think, issue 3, there's a little section about a haunted lamp, and talking about this haunted lamp and how it's disappeared and all this type of stuff. It's just really all these lovely little details that make it, a really interesting read. But as I said, the main thing is just that feeling of nostalgia and feeling like you were there, even though you weren't, but even though you were sort of, you were part of that. It's awful, isn't it, when you become part of history?
Well, we're all going to get there, we
will get there, yeah.
Especially now that we're living through history in a major way.
Goodness me, yeah.
In the 90s, I was a bit older, I think. So mid-90s, I would have been in my 20s, or just starting out in my 20s, because I'm old, as I like to point out to people.
Older, Paul. Older.
Leather grey.
Oh, yeah, older.
Definitely old. Believe me. My body tells me that every morning when I wake up. Oh, you're old. So yeah, I mean, back then, I think music-wise, I think my tastes were kind of very limited, and I'm still now discovering older bands that I've never heard before, and kind of enjoy now, kind of listening to whenever I can. I don't listen to as much music as I like. I know it's a big thing for you, isn't it? You listen to
massive, yeah, music, right? All the time.
So I only get to do it when I'm doing the washing up, or when I've got sort of a sort of half hour or so to myself, or I'm cleaning, or I'm doing something, some house job. Put some music on and listen on my phone or whatever, or on the laptop. But it's always fascinating to see a commentary in one medium on another.
Yes.
So that you know, comics and music are kind of quite closely aligned.
Very much so, yeah.
Not so much in their artistic kind of execution, but more kind of emotionally or thematically. I don't know what I'm trying to get at, but I mean, I remember when I worked in a comic store, we did a lot of music events, and they were really good, and that introduced me to a bunch of music I'd never heard, and we were always playing music. And in fact, because the shop was quite large, you could literally start with one type of music at one end of the shop, and when you got to the other, it'd be something.
It was a different, yeah.
So that was always great, but you got to hear things that you'd never heard before, and you know, you were always asking, "What's this? What are we listening to?" You know, and the customers would enjoy that. They'd be singing along, or
yeah,
sometimes kids running around, they'd be dancing to stuff, and like that was great. Are you fond of people writing about music, or do you just prefer to go straight to the source and listen to the songs?
Oh, that's a funny one, really. I mean, I enjoy people writing about it when they do like a graphic novel on it. So I've got a Jeff Buckley graphic novel and a few different things like that. Do you know, it's such a personal thing, is music, that for me, to see somebody else's opinion on it doesn't really matter to me. And I know that sounds really awful, but I know what affects me. Music for me evokes so many different feelings, emotions, you know, memories, that type of stuff. So I personally wouldn't go out there and, you know, it sounds awful, but maybe listen to other people's recommendations on it to an extent. Maybe if they said, oh, it's a bit like this, it's a bit like this, it's a bit like that, and then you might like it because of them influences, I maybe would. But yeah, for me, it's not something it's not something that I sort of go to. I would also say as well, I'm probably with music a little bit, maybe not critical, actually. I'm quite, you know, quite accepting to most things. I like to listen to a lot of things that a lot of people don't like to listen to. But yeah, for me, I'd rather just listen to it. I'd rather just listen to it.
Right.
But I think when you, obviously I've been in bands a lot over the years and you're involved in the process, I think that can sometimes not take things away from music, but you can hear what people are doing sometimes. So it can, yeah, it can make it a good thing or it can make it a bad thing, dependent on. But yeah, it's a massive thing in my life. And coming back to what you were saying about the comic world and the music world, you know, from what I gather, there's so many comic book creators that are musicians. A lot of them do things like podcasts, that type of stuff. So, and I do believe that a lot of art is made with music. So I love it when a creator puts a playlist at the back of a comic. I love hearing what they've listened to. It's something I've thought about doing myself, because I listen to music while I'm reading comics. So that might be something I do down the line. I'm creating playlists at the moment. So at the moment I'm creating playlists based on when I'm making. So when I make jewelry or when I make things, I have a playlist, and then I'll,
that's nice,
you know, make a play. Yeah, it is quite sweet. So when I make somebody an item of jewelry, I'll say, oh, this is, you know, I was listening to Radiohead, I was listening to whatever, and put the tracks so they know what I was listening to while I made their piece of jewelry. So it's just a nice little extra sort of thing. But I do think, as you say, technically they're totally different mediums, but they just marry together so well. So for me, a comic like this, to bring them two worlds together so well. And as I say, just to sort of, you know, for it to be in an era that was, you know, for me, a very, you know, very exciting time, very dangerous time, very sort of, fun time, really. It's just great. So yeah, I love the relationship between comics and music. And it's probably one of the reasons. I don't know why I like it so much, maybe. I don't know.
I keep meaning to do playlists for the website, actually.
Really? I'm your girl. I can do that. Yeah. I can do that.
Yeah, because I really like your sort of music for dinner that you do and that sort of stuff. I love all those.
Supper and breakfast.
Yeah. That's sorry. Yeah. But there's been some great tunes on there and stuff that I really love. I wish my music taste was wider. I'm glad not to be super obsessed into things like vinyl, though. Do you know what I mean? Because, you know, I look around now and I see all like the films that I own and the comics that I own, and I just think, oh God, it would just be one more thing, wouldn't it? It would just be one more thing.
It is
taking
one more
up,
thing.
Yeah, taking up
the whole house. I have thousands of pieces of vinyl. thousands.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I've been collecting since my first piece I bought. I was 12. I think it was Voodoo People by The Prodigy on single. Yeah. It was years after it had come out. Actually, I found it in like More Music in Scarborough or something. But yeah, I've been collecting it for a long time. We've had this conversation before. I'm a bit of a collector of everything. So, but yeah, I don't get into collecting records. It's brilliant and I love it, but it does take up a lot of space. And yeah, and also I think you do listen to them, but obviously with MP3s and things now, it's so much easier to not. But I do love the sound of some records. Some records are made to be played on a record player, so you can really hear all the different sort of nuance in the sound because they've been recorded for that medium. Obviously, things are remasters and stuff now, but
I think the experience of listening on vinyl is a deeply personal one. So the same 10 people can own the same 10 record, and that record will sound slightly different to each of those 10 people.
Of course.
Depending on their kit, depending on whether or not, they accidentally knock the record player and there's like a little scratch or a bump now. And, there is a sort of unique experience that comes from that and is part of that. So I love the idea of that kind of being part of the experience. Funny enough, I've just got through watching the High Fidelity series on like Amazon or Stars or whatever, because me and my girlfriend like to have a TV show that we watch while we have dinner together, because that's when we get to spend our bit of time together. So we watch a different show every couple of weeks. There's something new goes on, and we've just watched that. And the amount of music that I'm going to have to go back and kind of Google and see. That was great. And I like I like hearing how people created a particular song or an album, and what was going on in their lives at that time. But and this, I mean, my hope is, having looked at the first issue, I've read the first issue of Homesick Pilots because I interviewed Dan ages ago for the website. That interview is on there now. I love Dan. In the incoming signals section of the website. So if you guys want to go and scroll down and find that, you'll be able to find it there. It's a written interview because Dan and I have the worst luck with podcasts. So we've tried 3 times to record podcast interviews. I think he's a jinx personally, and 3 times those interviews have failed to materialize. For technical reasons, so I think Dan's haunted. So, we've had this kind of back and forth, and every time I have to go to him, I'm really sorry, something's gone wrong. Can we try it again? But bless him, he does it. Like I'm really happy that he does that. And Caspar's art, as you say, is amazing. His colours are like they're out there. Like Dan was saying this in the interview, actually. He thinks Caspar is one of the best colorists of the last sort of decade in comics. Like I would agree. I mean, never mind. In addition to the art, his coloring is absolutely gorgeous. Do you like haunted house stories? Are you like a horror film person?
Yes. I mean, there's the obvious one, isn't there? Obviously, The Shining's a great example of that. But I've seen Amityville Horror. Lots of different things to do with haunted houses. As truth be told, I kind of lived in one. So I live in York. It's all haunted. So yeah, I do like anything to do with that. I love the idea of a property holding on to something or holding on to something that happened there. And again, I've got a slight obsession with haunted items. I'm a little bit worried about this necklace, so I've remade this necklace, and it's a vintage charm. It's probably haunted. I don't know. Could be cursed. I don't know. But so yeah, this is really old. I don't know where it's from. But yeah, so to me, it's kind of like a bit more exciting. Like, oh. But yeah, so I love anything like that. I mean, that genre to me is the ultimate. I suppose it's anything that makes me feel in any extreme way, and horror is something that can do that, isn't it? As a genre, it can make you really, really sit up.
Music as a medium, it's music is a kind of thing with extreme emotions. And in fact, I've got to say, there's some. I don't really like watching horror films on my own, but I sometimes have to because my girlfriend really does not like horror films. And there are, I think with music, there are some tunes where it's like, okay, I know that emotionally this is going to affect me in a certain way. So actually, I'm not going to play it because I don't necessarily want to feel that emotion right now.
Yeah, of course.
You ever find that with some music? Are you?
Oh yeah, I mean, music's so powerful. You know, it's the impact you can have on somebody by creating a good piece of music is, you know, again, it can. It's a very healing process for a lot of people, I think. You know, I like listening to quite, you know, sad music. It kind of makes me happy. Everybody's different, aren't they, with that type of stuff? But there are probably some tracks that I do struggle to listen to for whatever reason, or they'll remind me of something. So I do totally understand that. I mean, you know, sounds are very much like a smell, aren't they? They evoke a lot of memories. So I think there's that side of it. I would say in terms of an actual sound of something, it doesn't, unless it's got something emotional tied to it, it doesn't, you know, I can't go, oh, I won't listen to that because it's a bit sad or it's a bit happier. That doesn't sort of, I sort of don't have a scale for those things really. I'm sort of, I can go from listening to ABBA to listening to, you know, King Crimson. That's the type of person that I am. So it's.
And I think that's the mark of someone who's just like really interested in music is that you.
I'm just a mute.
From this sort of extreme pop to something that's considered, I don't know, perhaps higher art by some. I don't have that sort of snobbery. You know, I just think it's music and it's kind of, you know. Do you know, and as I've got older, I've learned to drop that any snobbery I did have right down.
Yeah, you know, people like what they like in terms of art, and it will have an effect on them in whatever way. So I'd never, you know, when I was a teenager, I was probably a bit more, you know, but as an adult, you know, everybody likes what they like, you know, and I don't think we're in that era now where music is a divider like it used to be. So you might not remember, like 70s, 80s, 90s, everybody was sort of in a little bit of a group, weren't they? So you would have your mods and your rockers, and that sort of doesn't happen as much now. So I do feel like that there isn't that sort of separating people with music. So people are probably a bit more free to just really listen to what they want to listen to, and not have to feel like they're part of you know, a specific scene or sort of group of people. But yeah, it's just, for me, it's something that I love. Obviously, it's something that I do, you know, I make music as well. So it's sort of, that's my passion in that sense. That's my artistry, if you want to call it that. But yeah, it's
do you get to do music every week, or is it something that you've had to kind of put on hold whilst you're
I rehearse at home, so I can do that because I've got all the tracks and stuff for everything that we do, and I can just mess about. I've got a spare room where I can do things with music anyway, so I can do it. But it's not the same. It's not the same as doing a full band rehearsal. I think we're looking at May probably for that now, May or June potentially.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, we've been doing Zooms and things like that, but it's not the same. I just can't wait to do a gig really. But
funny enough, just before we started, there was some guy outside with their he was just parked and he had the car stereo going, and all I could think was, for God's sake, you shut up.
You see, I'd be dancing me, Paul. That's the difference with me and you. I'd be like that. Ooh, what's he playing? Oh, what's he got on? I'd be trying to figure out what it is.
All I could think was, oh God, come on, man, I've got to record in a minute.
Paul, I would dance to a traffic light going off. Honest to God. So for me, like car alarms, I've been known to dance to that before. It's fine. But yeah.
Homesick. Like it's good. It's all good stuff. Like I'm really you like it all. But yeah, like Homesick Pilots, great book. Dan and Caspar, I think. I hope I'm saying this correctly. Aditya Bidikar does the letters. I think
it's Aditya Bidikar. I think Aditya.
Thank you.
Yeah, Aditya Bidikar.
Yeah. Sorry to Aditya if I'm mispronouncing it. I do apologise.
But yeah, I love all of his work. Anything Aditya works on is just he's brilliant. it's just brilliant. I mean, yeah, it is, yeah, and a lovely human.
Yeah. Apparently, Dan and Ram are on a personal mission to see if they can burn Aditya out, because he works on all their books, and it's just every book, and he just seems sort of indefatigable. I can't remember how. Yeah, they're on like a personal mission. And again, Ram is another guy who's heavily influenced by music. He's just had his graphic novel out, Blue and Green, which is a kind of music influenced horror story.
Yeah, it's on my trolley of comics. Yeah.
Oh, it's great stuff. But yeah, there's a lot in there, and I think, yes, stuff that warrants further investigation. I think the connection with music and comics. What else are you reading at the moment?
So this came out last week. I'll just get my notes. I've got notes. So it's a trade, actually. It's not a single issue comic, and it's called Write It in Blood.
Now I remember this being announced. I ran a very small item on it on the website when it was first announced. What's it? I haven't had a chance to have a look at it now that it's finally out. What's it like?
It's great. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I love the idea of it, but the main reason I initially bought it was because one of the characters is called Cosmo, and that was my grandfather's nickname, and it's my nickname. So I thought, I'm in a comic. Admittedly, as a anyway, I'll explain. But yeah, so that was the first reason. I thought, there's a Cosmo. Oh, definitely onto this. But yeah, it's brilliant. It's about two hitmen who are on their last job, Cosmo and Arthur, and they're looking forward to their retirement. So, it's the night before their retirement, and unbeknownst to Cosmo, Arthur's been a very naughty boy. So, and it's going to massively jeopardize their retirement and their plans.
Okay.
So it's very, very sort of pulpy, very gangster based, but goodness me, is it funny? It's so funny. Like, I know it's really bad, but I've laughed I don't know if I'm supposed to, but I laughed the whole way through it. There's so many different horrific things juxtaposed with just something so hilarious, and I just love that. I mean, that is, for me, that is the sweet spot, if that makes sense. That's what I really, really enjoy, when they can get that level of sort of horrificness mixed in with this underlying humour. Because let's be honest, that's how we cope, isn't it, in life, with a lot of things, isn't it? We sort of have a bit of humour underneath it. So yeah, that is absolutely brilliant. I've got my notes mixed up. I'm sorry. Not me a minute.
I love crime comics. I'm like, I would say it's probably one of my favourite sort of genres of comics outside of the superhero stuff, which I really do love. But the crime stuff for me is where I'm kind of usually happiest. I read a lot of the Sean Phillips
and Brubaker. Yeah, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Again, so far behind, I haven't read their latest thing yet. I'm looking forward to getting this at some stage, because I'm only doing comic shop visits once a month now. I'm not quite up on every week. One of the first things I wrote for the website was a kind of I don't know, look at the crime comic genre as a whole, and how it was kind of reasserting itself. Because I find that, I don't know if you find this, I think comic genres, the ones that are the biggest focus, tend to shift every few months. So like, you'll get a year or 6 months or so of where horror comics are just everywhere.
Yeah.
Which we're kind of into now. And at the time I was writing this thing for the website, it was very much crime books, which I love. I don't know what it is about comics that lends itself to crime as a genre, but there's something about it where it just seems to work perfectly. I don't know why. I don't know if it's something to do with the panel by panel pacing of it all.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's a factor with it. But I
just don't know. But I love it. I absolutely love it. Are you a big crime comics reader, or is this something you just dip into occasionally?
I dip into it occasionally. I mean, do you know, for me, very much like music, my comics can sort of be anything, really. There's a lot of different things that can sort of, resonate with me. And as you say, you do find, not that things are similar, but you will get a similar genre coming out at the same time. So you'll find that you've just got loads of horror stuff coming out at once, or maybe, something that's more post-apocalyptic. You'll get a few of them coming out at once. That's happened recently. So it's... So yeah, I do really like them. I especially like a lot of Phillips and Brubaker's work. I love Kill or Be Killed. I love. I've got Bad Weekend. I've got some of the single issues of Criminal. Actually, I think I've got issue 1 of that. But yeah, I've got Bad Weekend, which I love. All My Heroes Are Junkies. I still need to read Pulp. I've got it. I still need to read it. But yeah, I do really enjoy that genre. As I say, I wouldn't say it's something I'd specifically beeline to, but then I wouldn't say anything was really. Maybe horror a little bit. But yeah, I enjoy, I love it. Do you know, I love it when all the elements come together, Paul. So it can be about anything. So for me, as long as all the elements are right there, it's, I can enjoy a story about horses.
So who's the writer on the writer and artist on By in Blood, if you don't mind me asking?
So it's written by Rory McConville.
Right.
The artist is Joe Palmer. It's coloured by Chris O'Halloran. Chris O'Halloran does amazing colours. One of my favourite colourists. He's Ice Cream Man and Haha recently.
Right.
And it's lettered by Hassan Otsmane-Elhaou. So
yeah, I always get called the same name. Hassan does. I'm sure actually you probably met Hassan. I
don't know. Maybe I've met Hassan once years ago. That will have been
the guy who runs and has created Panel by Panel, the digital comics magazine.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, and he does a great YouTube show called Strip Panel Naked.
Brilliant.
Really, it's really where he'll look at an element, like one particular element from a comic. They're really good. Like I've only just got into those recently because I just wasn't aware that he was doing them. He's a lovely guy. I met him once, I think, at All But All, just very briefly, sort of 15 minutes. We had a quick chat. Just really nice guy, great letterer, and of course one of those guys who seems to be doing a ton of books at the moment. So as you always find, letterers and colorists, you'll see their names on more books than you will any other part of the creative team, I think, because I think the turnaround is a bit faster for them, and of course that I'm assuming that the pay rates are lower, and therefore they're kind of having to really do a lot of books to make
so integral though. It's such an integral part of the process, and. I'm so happy that more comics now and graphic novels are starting to put the whole creative team on the front of the book, because the fact of the matter is it just wouldn't be a book without them all, and I think that gets missed. I mean, editors as well. I need to talk about editors a little bit more than what I actually do. Everybody's really, really important in the process, and it's what makes the thing. It's not just one person or one part of it. Very much like a band, you've got every element, and if you take certain elements out, it's not going to work the same. So I'm really pleased that you are starting to see that more, and that you are seeing that on the front of books more, and actually getting to see that continuity, because it should be there, and people should be celebrated in the same way. I think it's an art form in itself, lettering. I mean, I'm obsessed with it, to be totally honest. It's such a difficult thing to do, and to do it well. So, I'm just really pleased about that. I'm pleased that it is, more people are acknowledging everybody who works on these comics, and not just, the writer or the artist. I mean, for a while, sometimes it was just the writer, wasn't it? And they wouldn't even speak about the artist. So, I'm hoping it's getting a lot better.
Surprisingly, it's still very much the case today.
I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't, because it's always that thing of, do I like it because it's a well-written comic, or do I like it because it's a well-written comic with really good art? And I think you've really got to ask yourself that question, because the emotions as they come across, yes, some of that is in dialogue, but you're not privy as a reader to the direction of the book. You're not privy to what the writer has written in terms of how he describes a panel, whether that's an entire page, Alan Moore style, for one bloody panel, or a brief line, and the writer is, and the artist has then extrapolated that out into a beautifully illustrated page or panel. And it's just like, because you're not privy to that, you've really got to think the art is kind of such a crucial element, really.
It's a collaborative process,
Yes.
And I think that's what gets forgotten. It wouldn't be you wouldn't have a comic without the art. So you wouldn't have a comic without the letters. You wouldn't have all these things. So
thanks for saying in one sentence what it took me 15 paragraphs. this is why I always co-host. Have comic will babble. That's me. But yeah. So, is it kind of a fatalistic book? Is it? Is it quite a kind of? Talk to me about what type of book it's.
Right. So it's. I mean, is it a happy ending? I'm not sure. There's an irony that sort of runs through it, because one of the lead protagonists, let's say, Arthur, I don't think really wants to retire. I think he's quite like, what we're going to do? We've been hitmen all of our lives. Like, we're going to be bored and just go back to normal life. So I think there's a lot of that going to, and obviously, I don't want to ruin it, but things happen with Arthur. Cosmo totally disagrees with Arthur, but maybe he does agree with him down the line. So that's where there's a bit of a twist at the end. But yeah, it's very darkly funny in between quite horrific things, really. And there's some very so obviously Cosmo's trying to get a house, and there's a funny bit in there where he's sort of captured, if that's the right word, captured, and the estate agent rings, and one of his captors answers the phone and starts talking to him about the house and says to him, "Oh, it's not gone through, the mortgage ain't gone through," and they're just tied up. It's just that I just love anything that has that sort of. Do you know who did achieve it as well? That Texas Blood. I don't know if you've read that, but that achieved the same sort of thing.
Again, I only got to look at the first one. I've got to pick up the trailer.
Yeah, the first one, it was very funny. The first one with the pie.
Yeah, oh god.
Yeah. So yeah, it's that sort of like that sort of vibe as well, I would say. Reminded me a little bit of that in terms of the humour. But yeah, and it looks amazing as well. Again, the letters are used brilliantly in this. Especially when there's phone conversations, you can really see the nuance in how they're speaking to one another through the letters. But also, it's really the colours and the art is quite it's quite bright, and it's quite I don't know. It's difficult to describe actually what kind of art it is within it, but as I say, it's very brightly done, which again sort of, I hate to use the word juxtaposes everything that's going on. It's really
that thing of kind of creating a very stark look to something to kind of bring that darkness out. And also I think a lot of crime comics now at the moment love desolate spaces. They love the desert. They love the kind of deep south, or those kind of very dry spaces, I would say. And there's something in that really brings something out in a story. I remember reading, what did I read last year? It's really good. It's a Kickstarter. It's a book called Blacking Out. That was done as a Kickstarter by Chip Mosher and Peter Krause, who's like quite a well-known artist. He's done loads of stuff for DC, fantastic artist, and Chip's a great writer. That's worth checking out if you get a chance. Blacking Out.
Yeah, we'll do.
But those sorts of things, love that kind of seedy, rundown nature of passing time. The age of a house, or buildings or streets or neglected things. You know what I mean? Like there's something about crime that kind of prospers in that. So even if nothing else is blooming, you know, crime is always blooming. and
also,
sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, also, I suppose you're in this position because it's limitless with a pen, isn't it? What you can do. So even though there's horrific crimes in real life, you could even take it to that next level. So maybe that's where as well comics sort of, does really well with that medium, because they can just do whatever they want, can't they, really? And really make it, even, darker than what it would be in real life, which is pretty bad anyway. So,
it never shocks me, like the lengths that people will go to over money or out of anger and things like that. Like, and as I've gotten older, I find crime more horrific,
of course,
and it's something where that I find it is very much to do with age. Like as you get older, the world becomes actually, in small ways, although statistically, yes, we're getting safer, we're richer than we've ever been. The world is not as bad a place as it's ever been. It's actually much better now, and all that. We're healthier than we've ever been. We live longer than we ever have. But the nature of crime, and not even evil, but the mundanity of crime, kind of, because you can look outside and see it every day. There's a crime happening somewhere every second of every day, and it might be a tiny little thing or it might be a major thing, but there's something happening every day, and that kind of stuff gets me down a bit sometimes, and I do try and switch off. Speaking of Brubaker and Phillips, there's one book I did want to recommend to you. I don't know if you've read it of theirs, called Fatale.
I haven't read it, but I know about it.
Yeah, worth taking a look at. That combines horror and crime in a way, and that sort of noiry old Hollywood feel, but that is well worth, and it sort of spans over decades, and it's well worth reading. That's my favorite of theirs. So we're almost out of time, actually, Gemma.
We've just been talking.
It's great.
Sorry, we've just been having a nice chat.
I've loved it. I've loved it this week.
I've loved it, yeah.
The only thing I've read this week is Batman Annual number 5, which has been out for a while. It's written by James Tynion IV, and it's got art by James Stokoe. James Stokoe is an artist. I don't know if you know his stuff, but he does these extremely elaborate and kind of almost warped bodies and faces, and his art is extremely expressive and expressionistic, and the colors are amazing, and knowing that he was on it made me want to pick it up. He's done some stuff, he's done Godzilla, he's done my mind is going, I forget the name of the other book he did that was really kind of famous, but he did this, which is a Batman Annual, and as a Batman Annual, it's pretty good. But I think what elevates it, and no disrespect to Tynion, is Stokoe's art. Like, he does some incredible stuff on this, and it's well worth, if you can still pick it up, because his art, if you don't know it, it's wild. It's really good stuff. I also kind of like, I follow him and his wife Marley Zarconi. Do you know her?
Yes. Yeah. I don't know her, but I've heard the name, definitely.
I mean, I don't, like, I've never met her. Some of the folks from Allball, I think Liz interviewed her once, and she comes across really lovely in the interview, and she seems really lovely on Twitter and things. They've got like a little kid and stuff, but she also is an artist, and she does really trippy stuff.
Really?
So wild as what James does, but completely different style almost. But she did a book called, like, my favorite thing that I've seen of hers is Shade the Changing Girl by Cecil Castellucci.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So she did that with Cecil.
One I want to read. I haven't read that one yet, but I do want to read that.
Oh man, it's fantastic, and it's as good as the older Shade showed the Changing Man stuff that came out from Vertigo years ago, and of course the original Ditko stuff from years ago at DC. But yeah, like they're you can see that they're kind of well matched, you know. But they're wonderful artists and wonderful people to kind of follow on social media if you do that. But yeah, great stuff from Tinian and James Stokoe. That's it from me. I'm done. I'm out of puff. Just to remind folks that we buy our comics, obviously, different places. Gemma gets her stuff from where she works at Travelling Man in York. Travelling Man has 4 branches, Leeds, Manchester, York, and Newcastle. Yeah. Their web address is just below us now in the description box, so you can click on there and you can do mail order from Travelling Man if you're in that part of the country. They do standing orders, new comics, back issue. Do you do back issues?
We've got a few back issues actually. Everything's a back issue at the moment, but we've got quite a few. So if there is anything that you're wanting to complete your collection with and you're missing a number, it's definitely worth dropping an email or ringing, because we may have it, especially at the moment with how things are. Because no one can buy it.
And there is a link down below in the description box where you can take a look at Travelling Man. I get my comics from Gosh in London, who are a wonderful store, one of the longest running comic stores, I think, in the country now.
Amazing.
Over 30 years, I think. And I've been going to Gosh on and off for most of my sort of comic buying life. I love going there. It's always great to see the folk there. I'll be so glad when things reopen, I can get in there again. Yeah. They also do mail order. So if you're London based and you want to grab a graphic novel or a back issue or a new comic from them, standing order, you can do that. You can just click the link that is below us in the box there for either of the stores, Travelling Man or Gosh. I'm sure they'll be very grateful for your business. Please support your local comic store whilst all this madness is going on and beyond, because you're going to keep getting comics even after lockdown. I know. I am.
And they're great community spaces. Yes. You know, that's the deal with them. You know, I mean, I know at the moment, obviously, that's not ideal, but down the line, hopefully we want to recreate that again.
I think you're right. And it has been a struggle for comic stores everywhere. So do give them a try. And you can join us next week. We'll be back, we hope. We assume.
Yeah, we will. We will. I'll be back.
You can follow Gemma on Insta, Cosmo Gem Betty in colour. Jim. Cosmo
My
Gem.
My name's John, so that's cool. My granddad's name's John, so we'll allow that.
Yeah, and the black and white one. There is Gemma's Instagram address is also just below in the description box, as is mine, as is the Comic Crush. I would love it if you visit the Comic Crush. Love it if you subscribe to the channel and left us a comment. Give us a shout, and I will chat back to you. Patrons as well. We run a Patreon. Please give the Patreon a look. Please consider supporting the site long term, because that all helps me be able to get comics to talk about and write about, and it will help me pay my lovely co-hosts, which is the goal. But yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys. If you've got anything you want to say, at the Comic Crush on Twitter, or the Comic Crush on Facebook, or at the Comic Crush on Instagram, you can reach me through any of those mediums or channels, and I will answer you back, I promise. Thanks very much for watching, Gemma. Thanks so much for doing this, guys. We'll catch you next time on The Crush. This has been The Touch, the Comics Touch. Perfect. So goodbye from me, goodbye from Gemma, and goodbye from Krang, who is
somewhere.
See you guys.
Bye.